Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
And the dreaded moment finally came when we were halfway to the tower. As we were jumping from branch to branch, a loud crash sounded about 100 meters or so in front of us. In a fraction of a second, our team came to a halt with our weapons at the ready and eyes sharp, observing our surroundings. I heard a small whistling noise from beside me, and relying purely on muscle memory, I ducked as a kunai shot over my head and embedded itself into a tree with a loud thunk. "Contact," I said, turning towards the direction that the kunai came from. I didn't even hear or sense anything, which meant the enemy was very well trained. This meant that it was most likely Orochimaru himself. Yeah, no shit. Look at this thing. Naruto yelled as another loud crash was heard. I turned back around just as I heard Sakura say, what the hell, and honestly, her reaction was completely justified. In front of us stood a massive python, poised to strike at a moment's notice. Its head alone was almost the size of a building. The entirety of the python was slowly coming out of the summoning smoke as our team could do nothing but watch. Kukuku, I heard laughter from the head of the snake, and out of the smoke, I saw the figure of a woman with a farmer's hat emerge. I always found it weird when I read Orochimaru's laugh written as Kukuku, but now I understand it. This guy's laugh really does sound like that. "Hello, Sasuke-kun," the woman said. There were maybe two people in the world that could summon snakes, and probably only one that summons those as big as this one. So then why hadn't the ANBU stepped in yet? "Hi, Orochimaru," I yelled at the top of my lungs, trying to get the ANBU, or really, anyone, to help us. "Oh, are you hoping for the ANBU to come running to help you?" he asked, and my face paled. Shit. That was all I could think as the blood drained from my face and my fingers felt cold. The fact that he knew about them meant only one thing: he had killed them, which in turn meant that we had no overwatch. There was no one coming for us, and this was the end of the line. I felt like the downed Black Hawk pilots probably felt in Operation Gothic Serpent in Somalia. They at least had the knowledge and hope that someone was trying to come to their aid. Please let Yugo and Kakashi be okay," I prayed in my mind. If anything happened to them, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Wait, I was gonna die anyway. Oh well. "Now, before I kill you, why don't you tell me how you found me out," he said, ripping off the fake woman disguise and revealing his true self. Yep. I was going to die here. There was absolutely no doubt about that. But since he was asking me for information, it meant that I still had a hand to play here. Orochimaru still had an incentive to keep me alive. This meant one thing. If I could, I'd at least save Naruto and Sakura in the process. I looked at the two people I had grown fond of over the months and smiled. I wondered for a second how it would have turned out had I transmigrated into Naruto's body. But such thoughts were pointless now. "Let my teammates go and I'll tell you," I demanded as I turned my attention back to Orochimaru. "Sasuke, what the hell? What are you talking about?" Naruto tried to yell and get his shivering under control. Orochimaru was releasing a crazy amount of killing intent which froze both Naruto and Sakura, but I was completely unaffected. I took a deep breath to calm myself. This was definitely going to be where I died, so there was no point in panicking. In fact, I needed to drag this out as long as possible so that I could buy my teammates some time. It's weird how when you're on the edge of death, it's the little things that you think about. I probably shouldn't have drunk tea in the morning. I need to take another dump right now. Or even, I should have gotten a haircut. It's so weird how the hidden villages, who are basically the spec ops branch of the military of the country, have such lax dress and decorum standards. But this also gives you a small sense of power. I'm going to die either way, so why not go out while dicking around as much as possible, I thought as I gazed at the incredibly powerful monster in front of me. I wonder if I could say something that would compel him to keep me alive but at the same time, fuck around with him and make him extremely angry. Yo! I shouted, giving up all hope. Orochimaru looked at me curiously. Come down here. Let's have a chat, I said and jumped off the tree branch. I landed deftly with a roll and dusted off the minor spots of dirt on my clothing. Come on, I said, looking up at Orochimaru who was just observing me and waved at him to come down and join me. After a short pause, the massive snake slowly slithered its way down until I was face to face with its snout. Interesting. You are a very interesting one, he said as he jumped off the summon creature and stood barely a meter away from me. Thank you for the compliment, I said with a nod. First of all, I started, even though you are basically an international terrorist, let me just say, it's an honor to meet you, I said as I stuck out my hand for him to shake. He was a stone-hearted, inhumane cunt, but there was no harm in getting on his good side. Orochimaru cocked his head to the side and gazed at me curiously. The only reason I wasn't dead yet was probably because he's never had someone talk to him in such a friendly manner in a very long time. Ha! I sighed, faking confidence and annoyance at the same time. Listen, I know this is weird, and honestly, I don't like you or anything, I said. He narrowed his eyes in contempt, but before he could say anything, I said, but I do respect your dedication to research. And it was partially the truth. The deeds he committed were heinous and unforgivable, but at least he was honest about it, unlike the people who took the moral high ground, berating him for his actions while still benefiting the most from his experiment results. In my previous life, when the Nazi regime fell, did the Allies destroy all of the scientific experimentation documents that were scavenged like vultures on dead meat? No. They used it for their own benefit and even hired Nazi scientists to work for them. Similarly, did Konoha destroy all of Orochimaru's leftover research? No. They studied it themselves and made use of it. Do you now? He asked with a raspy voice. I felt his suspicion, but I wasn't afraid. I do. What you did. It shouldn't have been done, but you did it in the name of science and progress of humanity, so I can at least respect that much, I said to him. I still don't like it, though. I added, just to show him that I wasn't sucking up to him. He said and finally took my hand and shook it. Surprisingly, it felt just like any other normal human hand. It was slightly cold though. You're an interesting one, so I shall hear you out before deciding whether I want to kill you or not, he said with his trademarked evil smile, gesturing for me to continue. He stopped emitting his killing intent and I heard Naruto and Sakura gasp and heave on the branches above me. Alright, I nodded. Now, here's the deal, you can have anything you want from me as long as you let my teammates go completely unharmed. Just as I said that, Naruto and Sakura both dropped from their position. They took up positions so that it'd look like we were surrounding Orochimaru. Naruto, Sakura, stand down, I said to my teammates. The hell you mean stand down? Naruto yelled. This bastard was about to kill us right now. Fucking hell, I said as I facepalmed. Gesturing to the snake bastard in front of me, I said, guys, meet Orochimaru. I paused. Is it A rank, or S rank? I asked him. S rank, Orochimaru answered, looking amused at my antics. Right. An S rank missing mean that is capable of crushing us all at once with both arms tied behind his back, I finished introducing him. Let's not fuck around right now, yeah? I asked them. Wait. Oh, Orochimaru. Sakura said with wide eyes. And no way. Why is he here? It seems that she recognized him. I wasn't too surprised that Naruto still didn't know who this was, though. He never really read the textbook in the academy, and I vividly remember the chapter on international terrorists was an optional one. But I realized that this was the perfect time for me to say something to pique his interest in me. Guys, let me tell you both a little bit about him, yeah? I started. Orochimaru was an orphan who was trained by Hiruzen Sarutobi, our Hokage. He was on a team with Tsunade and Jiraiya who were so strong, they were named as the legendary Sannin by Hanzo. As I continued, Orochimaru stared at me with interest, but I didn't see any burning curiosity yet. One of his big accomplishments is that he's the one to have caused the last known rampage of the Eight Tails in Kumo. This made him widen his eyes a little bit. Afterwards, he joined the darkest of the Konoha Black Ops, route, under Danzo, and started experimenting on kids of Konoha, trying to make them awaken the first Hokages would release. Isn't that right, Orochimaru? I asked. Only one final push was needed. In fact, one of the kids actually manifested the ability, and his experiment succeeded. Though the other 59 died, unfortunately, I finished, and as I thought, Orochimaru didn't know about this. The curiosity in his eyes that I wanted to see was finally there. Now it was time to change the subject. By the way, Sakura's right, I said nonchalantly. Why are you here in the first place? I asked Orochi Pedo. Kukuku, he laughed again. Wonderful. You are very knowledgeable, Sasuke-kun. But why I'm here is not really any of your business now, is it? He asked. Moreover, why don't you tell me more about the one kid that survived? Yeah. Well, it kind of is my business, you know, I said. You're a missing nin. I'm a shinobi of Konoha. You're wanted in Konoha. So technically speaking, I'm supposed to arrest you, aren't I? And I don't really want to talk about that other topic for now, I added with a shrug. Orochimaru threw his head back and laughed out loud. You, he said as he brought his face incredibly close to mine and held a kunai against my neck, are one incredibly brave kid, he said. Ugh. I muffled a cough as I stumbled back. Now I had a small plan in mind. If I could make him lose his cool even the slightest bit, that would be enough for the time being. Dog, hold up a sec, I said, unhooking my equipment pouch. I could have reached in, but that would set him on edge. I put the equipment pouch down and started ruffling through the items. Ah! I exclaimed as I found it. Take one of these, please, I said, handing Orochimaru a pack of gum. The air around us felt like it had frozen as he stared at the item in my hand for a second. And the next thing I knew was that I was flying through the air while my face felt like it was on fire. I screamed as my stomach crashed against a tree trunk, probably breaking a few ribs. Ugh, another cough escaped me as I fell on one of the sharp roots and rolled over onto the ground. And here I thought you were a smart kid, I heard Orochimaru say as he slowly walked towards me. I tried getting onto my feet, but the pain in my chest made it hard to even breathe. I coughed quite a bit of blood out before I could finally speak. What the actual fuck gave you that wild idea? I asked, making a self-deprecating joke. Orochimaru scowled and his figure blurred once again as a throbbing pain invaded my stomach. Gah! I screamed once again as I found myself flying and hitting more trunks and branches. Yep. I had definitely broken more than a few bones. I spit out some more blood in my mouth as I tried to get up. Yeah, no, fuck this. Now would you like to give me more information about the child that survived? Or would you like some more pain, he said, giving me some choices. Who the fuck did this gutter tadpole think he was? I hated it when people took this attitude with me. I didn't give a shit whoever it was. Pain? I asked with a smile on my face. This ain't pain. Real pain was when I fucked your mama last, and before I could finish my sentence, I momentarily blacked out from more of his beatings. I regained my consciousness once again as I found myself being held up and looking at him through swollen eyes. Yo, you ugly as fuck, boy, I declared, and more blows rained down on me. I was taking advantage of the fact that he couldn't kill me until he got his info. And I wasn't even feeling pain all that much as my entire body had gone numb and I kept slipping in and out of confidence. I will get the information myself, he said as my eyes opened a little bit again. But you are quite the resilient one, I see, he declared. And this would be my final sentence probably. He didn't let me finish my last one, but I just had to make one last yo mama insult before I died. Oh, you're just finding that out? Just talking was even more painful than I thought. But I couldn't let it end here. I thought yo mama would have told you after I fucking obliterated her Titus the night you were born, I answered and grinned. If I was gonna die, I was gonna do it on my terms. And Orochimaru's livid expression was the last thing I saw before the world blacked out. You, young man, are one strange human, I heard. Wait. Did I hear that? Or was that only in my head? No, more importantly, where the hell was I? I couldn't see. But rather than being blind, it was more like nothing existed. Ugh, I have no idea how to explain it. It was as if I was just floating in an unending space. Wait, ASEC. I was dead. I see. So this is what death feels like, eh? Interesting. It really ain't that bad. But I guess I won't be saying that in a few hours. Boredom was my worst nightmare, so it'd be fitting that the purpose of my hell would be to bore the fuck out of me. Oh well. I tried to shrug but I couldn't. Right. Death. That means no physical body. Great. This shit sucked ass already. Maybe I should try reciting the Fibonacci sequence? 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 55 plus 89 was... Right. 144. That's enough, I heard that voice again. Who is it? I tried to speak, but no words came out. You may call me Mother, the voice said. Now that I thought about it, it did sound like a woman. Mommy? I thought. The voice paused, not speaking for a while. Maybe I should just let you rot in hell, it said. No, wait. I'm sorry, Mother. I think yelled. Is that even a thing? Think yelling. Because no matter how hard you try, the volume of the voice in your head never really changes. The voice sighed. This is exactly why I said you're a strange human, it said, and I chuckled mentally. Yeah, I've heard that a few times. Mother. Who are you really? A god or something? I asked. I reckon you can call me that, she said. Yo, not gon' lie, this woman really be sounding hot AF. The voice sighed again. I heard that, she said. Perfect. Now I know you can read my thoughts even if I don't want to convey them to you directly. You're quite shrewd as well, she laughed. It's a cruel world. You gotta be smart to survive, I replied. Fair, she said. So? You gonna tell me who you really are or nah? As I have told you, I am Mother. Oui, but why Mother? Are you a goddess or some shit that controls the entire universe and is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent? The voice chuckled, and honestly, it was a beautiful sound. Her voice was even nicer than the voice of that one voice actress in that one anime I watched a long time ago. Thank you for the compliment. And no, I'm not all that powerful. The people of this world call me the Mother of Chakra, so I thought it would have been appropriate to have you call me that. Right. Kagaya Otsutsuki? You know about me, she asked. Of course. If I remember correctly, you ate the fruit of that one big-ass tree and became the first chakra user before becoming the Ten Tails by merging with the tree, right? You are very knowledgeable. Suspiciously so. And yes, you are correct, she said. Great, okay, so what do you need from me? I asked. It's a simple request, she said. When the time comes that I'm revived, when you lay your eyes on me, I need you to utter the phrase "It's time to be brave, little angel," she requested. That's oddly specific, I said. What if I don't? I asked. I needed to know what my options were. Kagaya sighed a long sigh before she said, I shall explain everything to you. Aight, I'm listening. I'm sure you know about me being sealed by my children, correct? She asked. For harvesting chakra from humans or some shit, right? I do not have time to explain my reasons for that at the moment, but before I was sealed, I created a manifestation of my will, she said. Black Setsu, I know. Yes. At that time, my will was to stay alive, but because of my hatred and anger, Setsu was tainted with my dark emotions. While I have been in the seal, I have grown weaker, and when I revive, Black Setsu will be able to take over me very easily, which means that because of those emotions, I will probably destroy the world. That is why you need to say the phrase. What's so special about the phrase? I cannot tell you that, she said, sounding shy. HM? Does it have to do something with your lover? I teased. Q quiet, mortal, she said, sounding actually flustered now. I laughed. Alright, I said. I guess when you eventually get unsealed, I'll say those words. Thank you. I will provide you with some of my chakra that I have saved up over the years and that will hopefully enhance your healing powers and augment your strength. And I see that you are a direct descendant of one of my grandchildren, which means you are a direct descendant of me, meaning that I will also be strengthening your ocular prowess, she said, and instantly, I could feel a fiery warmth spreading through me. And since I didn't have a body, the me was basically my soul. Go and save the world, young one. And that was the last thing I heard. A small beeping sound filled my ears and pain shot through my body. Though I didn't really mind it all that much. Pain meant I was still alive. This was good. With intense effort, I cracked open my eyes and a white hospital ceiling came into view. Ugh, my voice leaked out as excruciating pain invaded my body when I tried to move my neck. Goddamn, I whispered as I relaxed again. The pain was too much for me to bear right now. But I couldn't give up. Just as I was about to try looking around once more, I heard the door open and a small gasp escaped the person. Doctor. The patient is awake. I heard a woman say, followed by some rapid footsteps. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see multiple men and women in Konoha field medic uniforms and among them, a woman in a doctor's uniform. The doctor approached me, looking at me with worried eyes. Can you hear me? She asked. Yep, I tried to reply chipperly but it just sounded painful. And you can see me, she continued the questions. I believe so, yes, I said. On a scale of 1 to 10 with 1 being no pain, describe how you're feeling, she said. Forget that. Where's Naruto and Sakura? I asked urgently. Please tell me they were fine. Please tell me my actions weren't in vain. Sasuke-san, I need to make sure of your kind, the doctor tried to say, but screw that. I needed answers. Listen. I need to know how my teammates are. Are they okay? I asked again, conveying with my eyes that she wasn't getting anything out of me until I knew exactly how they were. The doctor looked back at one of the medics and then sighed. Yes. Both of your teammates are unharmed. If I deem your condition to be stable, they may be allowed to visit you, she said, and my shoulders relaxed a little. Good. Kakashi and Lynx. How are they? I asked next. They are both very heavily injured but in stable condition for now, she answered, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Thank heavens. I really wouldn't have been able to live with myself if anything had happened to any one of them. Now will you please answer my question? Describe the intensity of the pain you're feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, she repeated her question. 10. That's definitely a 10, I said. This is the most pain I've ever felt in my life. I see. So the morphine isn't working? Interesting. What the hell? Did she just say interesting? Were we in Orochimaru's lab or something? Sasuke-san? What is the last thing you remember before this? The doctor asked. What do you mean? I asked. Wasn't it obvious? They probably found me near death in the forest of death and brought me in. Do you remember how you got here? She asked. Nah, I said, squinting my eyes, trying to remember something more but nothing came. The last thing I remember is Orochimaru's angry face after I told him I fucked his mom, I said, and I heard multiple gasps and murmurs come from the medic behind the doctors. Huh. The doctor sighed. Doc? Is everything okay? What's going on? I asked, but before she could answer, I heard the door open and multiple footsteps walking in. Hokage-sama, the doctor said as she turned away from me to face the door. TCH. That guy's here? I asked with an annoyed tone. Doctor, can I please have some privacy with Sasuke-kun here? I heard the Hokage say. Of course, Hokage-sama, the doctor said immediately and filed out of the room with all the medics. As the door shut again, I saw the figures of Hiruzen and multiple ANBU come into view. Sasuke-kun? I heard him say. What? I asked simply. The Hokage sighed. Can you at least show some respect? He asked. Did he just fucking? Oh, he wants some respect, does he, this sumbitch? Do you think it's a person's strength or a person's deeds that should be the reason that people respect them? I asked him. Hiruzen went quiet for a moment before shaking his head. Fair enough, he said, giving in to my argument. Let's talk about what happened during the second test, shall we? He said. Yeah, sure. Whatever, I said, attempting to shrug but giving up on it due to the pain. Can you explain what happened? He asked. I looked at him, annoyed that I had to explain much of the stuff that he already knew, but I reckon it was only standard operating protocol, so I continued. Naruto, Sakura, and I were going through the forest. We heard a loud crash and got attacked. When I saw what the hell attacked us, it was a huge snake with a person standing on top, and I remembered that the only person that was able to summon snakes was Orochimaru, so I identified him. I recognized that I wasn't going to make it out alive from there, so I gave up on fighting back and just tried to talk to him. I said he could do whatever he wants with me, but to let my teammates go unharmed. He didn't agree, so I told him his breath stank. Then he hit me and I got angry, so I told him I fucked his mama's ass the night he was born, and that's the last thing I remember. I finished my explanation. By the time I was done, the Hokage was facepalming and the ANBU beside him were shaking their heads in exasperation. What? What's wrong? I asked. You're an idiot. That's what's wrong, Hiruzen replied. Huh? This was the first time I've heard him speak so freely. I've got good news and bad news, he said. Which one do you want first? Bad, I replied. Your team technically failed the second test, and as such, you have been disqualified, he said. That was the least of my worries. In fact, that would actually be good news for me. Furthermore, he continued, your sensei and ANBU Captain Lynx have been heavily injured from their fight against Orochimaru. Yeah, that was very bad news. And lastly. He paused. Something weird has happened with your body, though I'll let the doctor explain that. Right. That last part was probably because of Kagaya's powers. What's the good news? I asked. Your teammates are relatively unharmed, and Kakashi and Lynx will both make a full recovery, he said. I couldn't stop the smile that floated onto my face. Also, he added with a smile. We have Orochimaru in custody. Eh? I nearly screamed. That's great. How did you manage that? This was awesome. It would be amazing if I no longer had to deal with him in the future. Even though you are an idiot, Hiruzen said. I cannot deny that it was only because of you that we were able to manage this. Me? How so? I asked curiously. Most likely because of your insults. Orochimaru used some high-level jutsus on you, and later Kakashi, who came to rescue you, which instantly attracted the attention of nearly all of the ANBU in that part of the village, and they all descended on him and held him off long enough for me to arrive. Eventually, we managed to subdue him, he said solemnly. Then why the sad face? I said. Hiruzen looked at me, and I could really see the toll that his position had taken on him. We lost a lot of good men and women in the process of capturing him, Sasuke. It was pure luck that we succeeded, honestly. Orochimaru had already expended a large amount of chakra from when he had summoned his snakes, and then some because he used some chakra-heavy jutsus on you and Kakashi, he said. The only reason that we were able to subdue him is because of you and your sensei, and the fact that he didn't have anyone else helping him, while we had myself, multiple jonin, and almost 2 whole squadrons of ANBU. Goddamn, that must have been one hell of a fight. But I realized something else as I heard the Hokage speak. This was my chance. Wait, you sure there wasn't anyone else helping him? I asked, acting suspicious of his words. Because I distinctly remember him giving out some orders to one of the Konoha genin, I told them. Instantly, the Hokage and ANBU were on high alert. What? Who? One of the ANBU behind the Hokage spoke up. I think. His name was Kabuto Yakushi? He had glasses and long silver hair tied up in a ponytail, I said. Ryu, mobilize 5 squads right now. Scour every inch of the village, and if you don't find anything within 3 hours, mobilize 2 more squadrons and expand the search radius to encompass the nearest 50 towns, the Hokage commanded instantly. I watched on in surprise at how they all took my words at face value and believed me without a shred of doubt. I guess I must have really earned their trust with my little stunt, huh? And look amongst yourselves as well, I added. All eyes fell on me while the room went silent with a chill. What does that mean? One of the other ANBU asked with a threatening tone, but I didn't give a shit if he felt insulted. It means that guy wasn't just a low-level genin. His strength was at least on par with Kakashi. I could tell, I said, sounding grave. Check amongst yourselves. Check in on anyone who has been on holiday or leave or anything. Check the quiet ones. The ones who usually don't talk to many people. After a short pause, the Hokage nodded. Do as Sasuke says, Hiruzen said instantly before any of them could refute my words. As the Hokage finished giving his orders and all but one ANBU disappeared, I spoke up again. How did I make it out alive? I asked. Truthfully, I knew it was because Kagaya enhanced my healing, but I feel like Orochimaru should have just killed me right away. It was surprising that he didn't. Unless he actually wanted to take me back with him and experiment on me. We still do not know that, Hiruzen said. When we found you, we thought you were dead. You didn't have a pulse, your limbs were broken and bent in weird ways, all of your internal organs had stopped working, but for some reason, your heart still just barely kept pumping. No, that's not the right word for it. It was like your blood was only flowing without any external forces acting on it. And your brain activity was still normal. He shook his head in confusion. The rate that your body was healing it was nearly on par with Naruto. A long moment of silence passed as I didn't know what to say. Finally, the Hokage stood up and put his hand on my forehead. Thank you, Sasuke. You have done a great service to the Leaf Village, he said with a smile. Even though I don't like this damn old man, I can't lie, it did feel good to be shown some appreciation for my actions. With that, the Hokage and ANBU left as the doctor and the medics entered again to question me. It had been about 3 days since I had woken up and goddamn, the Hokage wasn't lying when he said I had a fast healing speed now. I was already able to move all my limbs except for my left arm, that one was particularly screwed up right now. But the news of Orochimaru being in Konoha custody gave me some food for thought. Would the invasion of Konoha not happen now? If it didn't happen, would Hiruzen stay alive? Would Tsunade not return to the village? And let's say it did still happen. Would Hiruzen still die? If he did die, would Kakashi become the 5th Hokage instead of Tsunade? Or would they still try to bring Tsunade back to the village? As I thought about that, my thoughts wandered off to the results of the second test. Only 6 teams had made it out of the Forest of Death, and as such, there were 18 participants, so they had decided to have a preliminary round. From that, 9 genin had come out, but surprisingly 1 had forfeited. Maybe this was the universe's way of fixing itself, and just like canon, the 8 remaining ones had 1 month to prepare until the final round. The matchups were Gaara vs Shikamaru, Temari vs Kiba, Hinata versus Ino, Shino versus Kankuro. From this, I could sort of accurately predict how the matches would go. I knew Shikamaru would give up instantly. Temari would probably win her round since she could just keep attacking from afar and not let Kiba get close to her. As long as Hinata kept moving and got close to Ino, she'd destroy her. And Shino definitely won his battle with Kankuro and Kanon, so I think that's probably what would happen this time as well. So, I could say with about 90% confidence that the semi-final rounds would be Gaara versus Temari, where Temari would forfeit, and Shino versus Hinata, which I honestly had no idea how it would go. This told me one thing: Gaara would be in the finals for sure, which meant that there was a very high chance that the invasion would still happen. Fuck. I needed to figure something out, and quickly. Ugh, I groaned as my knees gave out once more. Thankfully, someone was there to catch me. "I've got you," Sakura said as she caught me and let me sit on the floor gently. "Thanks, Sakura," I said, incredibly grateful that I had such amazing friends. I'll never understand why the original Sasuke was so grumpy and didn't want friends. Like, yeah, your family got killed, but shit happens in life that you cannot control. Get over it and get stronger so that when it happens again, and it will happen again, you can face it. Sakura, seeing my legs couldn't hold me up anymore, went behind me and sat down, leaning me against herself and wrapping her hands around my waist. "Let me know when you're ready again," she said. Naruto and Sakura had both come in this morning, looking deeply worried. After making sure I hadn't sustained any permanent damage, they began berating me for taking on everything myself. When I tried to explain that I was worried about them and just wanted to make sure they got out alive at the very least, Sakura started crying while Naruto's face went red with anger as made a vow to get stronger than ever and to never let anyone he loved get hurt ever again. That had definitely brought a smile to my face. As shitty as this situation was, in the end, at the very least, I was able to encourage my teammates to work harder. That's surely something good that came out of this whole endeavor. Now, turn by turn, Sakura and Naruto were helping me start walking and moving properly again, and at the rate that I was progressing at, I didn't think it'd take too long for that to happen. As I expected, it didn't take too long for it to happen. It was barely a week later and I was already able to do some light jumping jacks in my hospital room. The big heavy cast was off of my left arm and there was now only a thinner, more comfortable one. "Sasuke-kun. How are you doing now?" the doctor asked me as I was walking down the hallway. "I'm actually doing great, Doc," I said as I approached her. "My entire body has never felt better." "Well, maybe except for this arm," I joked as I waved my left arm that was in a sling. The doctor laughed along with me as she said, "Well, that's great to hear. Your healing powers are really something else. But make sure to take plenty of rest, you understand?" "Yes, Doc. I'll take your advice," I replied as I continued on my way, getting lots of smiles and waves from the nurses and other patients. Finally, after my long trek, I stopped in front of a special metal door that was on the ground floor. "Yo!" I said to the two ANBU guarding the door. "How are you doing, Sasuke?" one of them asked as he placed his hand on a seal that was on the door. "Not too bad, how about you?" I asked as the seal flashed green and the door unlocked. "Fine, thanks for asking. Say hello to Captain Lynx for us," he said as he swung open the door for me. "Sure. Will do. Thanks," I said, getting a nod from him as I stepped through. It was as if the scenery had done a complete 180 as I gazed down the long white deserted hallway. This portion of the hospital was reserved only for ANBU and the highest-ranking shinobi. It was rumored to have the full capabilities of an emergency operations center, in case of an invasion or war. I walked down the hallway, looking for room 111. I had been here once before, but since everything looked the same, it was very difficult to distinguish based solely on the amount of distance from the main door. That's why I had to read the room numbers that were written in tiny writing for each door. At last, I arrived at my destination and lightly knocked on the door. "Come in," the voice came from the inside. I turned the knob and opened the door. a light smile floated onto my face as I saw Yugo. She still had her ANBU mask on, but she looked so much more relaxed like this. I mean, both her arms were in a cast and one of her legs was also lifted up in a cast, but she looked peaceful at least. Lynx! I said excitedly as I stepped in and closed the door behind me. Sasuke, what? How can you walk already? She asked in astonishment as I walked to the other side of the bed and sat on the chair. Dunno, I'm just awesome like that, I answered with a cheeky grin. Smartass, she replied playfully. So, how's the recovery going? I asked, gesturing to the casts all around. Yugo sighed slightly. The medics said it will take me a month or so to heal completely, she said, a little bit of bitterness seeping into her voice. And then another couple of weeks of physical and mental therapy before I'm ready for active duty again. Damn. I'm sorry, I said, feeling like shit that I had technically done this to her. If I hadn't told her about Orochimaru. Oi, she said angrily, bringing me out of my musings. Don't you dare apologize. This is my job. This is what I'm trained to do, Yugo declared as her voice softened a little. In fact, I should probably be thanking you right about now. If it wasn't for you figuring out Orochimaru, we wouldn't have him in custody right now. I sighed. She was right. It was because of my information that Orochimaru was in Konoha Supermax right now. I know, but I still feel guilty as shit, I said to her. Listen, Sasuke, Yugo began slowly. You are just now starting to feel the stress and trauma that comes with being a shinobi. From here, there are two paths that you can take, she explained as I listened to her carefully. You can either feel guilty and let go of yourself and die on a mission one day because you were distracted, or you can use this guilt, turn it into a burning desire to protect this village and train to the best of your ability, to become the strongest in this village. She paused, looking at me from the dark holes of the ANBU mask. Choose wisely, Sasuke, she finished. I took a deep breath and looked away from her. The choice was obvious. Even without her giving me choices, getting stronger than ever was my plan. But seeing that Yugo cared for me and believed in me that much only made the fire in my heart burn brighter. I'll become strong. Strong enough to never let something like this happen ever again, I said, gesturing to her. I'll be watching, she replied simply. I couldn't see because of the ANBU mask, but I knew she had a smile on her face. Speaking of which, I decided to ask her to show me her face. I mean, it should be okay now, right? We were so close already. By the way, Lynx, I said to her. Can you take off your mask? I want to see your face. Yugo laughed a little bit as she gazed at me. Why do I feel like you already know what I look like, even if I've never taken off my mask in front of you? She asked. I didn't know if it was just an ANBU's instincts or a woman's intuition, but she was sharp. Ah, come on. You know that's not possible, I said, playing dumb. She hummed playfully. You know what? Not right now, she said. Seeing my downtrodden look, she added, maybe one day when you're strong enough to defeat me when we spar. That's when I'll show you. That was an interesting offer, but I had another idea. Or, I said with a smile. I can just take it off right now, and see you. Yugo chuckled as if expecting me to say that. You can surely try, she said, challenging me. But these masks are stuck to our face using chakra. So unless you've got enough strength to rip my chakra apart, I don't think you'll be successful. Damn it! I said, reaching over and pulling on her mask, just to confirm her statement. See, she said victoriously. This was interesting. Well, I did have one more trick up my sleeve. Or what if? I said, adjusting my cast so that it allowed a little more freedom of movement. I used the chakra-absorbing jutsu? I asked as I slowly ran through hand seals. That won't work either. The rate of absorption is too slow, Yugo said. Had I not been paying close attention, I would have completely missed it, but I didn't. The small waver in her voice when she pronounced won't. Oh? I asked with a smirk. Are you sure about that? I finished the hand seal sequence and my hand glowed blue. Sasuke, wait, Yugo said with a hint of fear in her voice. Not minding her, I brought my glowing hand closer to her face. Sasuke, no, she said, trying to turn her face away and... Please, Sasuke, she pleaded. As my hand got within an inch of her mask, I cancelled the jutsu and instead, flicked her mask. Was all she could say as the knocking noise came from her mask. I flicked it again, absolutely loving her reaction. As Sasuke, she asked. One more flick. What are you doing? She started getting a little annoyed. You see, I said, flicking one more time. I thought, flick, instead of taking your mask off, flick, it would be so much more fun, flick, if I just took revenge for those flicks of yours. I finished with one more flick. Sasuke, she said, earning one more flick. Sasuke, she said, a little more forceful this time. Go ahead, Lynx, I said with another flick and a devious grin on my face. That's enough, she said. Oh, is it? Flick. I think I'm just getting started, I replied with an evil cackle. Sasuke, I will kill you, she threatened, trying to move but giving up on that idea as she hissed from the pain. I rewarded her effort with 3 flicks in a row. Oh, will you? That's cute, I said. One more flick. Sasuke, she growled. Flick. Damn it, SAS. Flick. Sa. Flick. Gore. Flick. You're dead. Flick. You're dead meat, Sasuke. Flick. Hee hee, I laughed with glee. I can do this all day. I will. Flick. 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 The flicking lasted for 10 whole minutes, and I knew I had to end it then because all I could hear anymore was a constant low growl with an occasional "you're so dead" thrown in there. As I was leaving, I waved to Yugao from the door to her hospital room, saying, I'll be back tomorrow. And before she could reply, I shut the door. You little shit. I heard her yell from inside and snickered as I sauntered out of the top-secret medical facility. Kakashi, I muttered as I saw the badly beaten-up body of my sensei peacefully unconscious in the ICU. Sitting beside him just strengthened the feeling of guilt in my heart. Come on, bro. You gotta wake up, I said, no, pleaded, hoping that he could hear me right now, but all I got in return was the steady beeping of the machines around him that signified that he was alive. From what the Hokage and the doctors had told me, Kakashi had rushed into the forest of death from the ANBU command center as soon as the reports from the ANBU stopped coming in and the chakra signatures of huge jutsus popped up. He had found me just barely in time and had battled it out with Orochimaru and held him off just long enough for the Hokage and more Jonin and ANBU to arrive. Kakashi had expended all of his chakra and then some by taking an ungodly amount of chakra pills which had torn his chakra system. From his fight, he had also sustained multiple injuries that would have been fatal if it was anyone else. Almost every internal organ of his was punctured, or at least injured in some way. His bones had also sustained heavy damage and more third-degree burns from when Orochimaru had used his fire-style jutsus. Mate, I said and paused. It was only now that I realized how attached I had grown to the people around me. I tried to live my life in a detached, carefree way, in a way where I wouldn't feel pain when I eventually lost the people around me. But as I was just finding out, that clearly hadn't worked. I haven't even apologized for being an ass to you for so long, I whispered. My time with Kakashi didn't last too long, though. An ANBU barged into the room urgently as he called out to me. Sasuke-san, he exclaimed. I asked, confused about what the hurry was. Please follow me. The Hokage requests your presence. Aohawawaya. What was this, like the 3rd week in a row? Is Hiruzen a secret pedo too? Sasuke-san, it's urgent, the ANBU said. Fuck. Fine, I said, getting up from my seat. I honestly didn't have the energy to argue, so I'll see what he wanted from me this time. Walking at a brisk pace, the ANBU led me through the winding hallways of the hospital until we stepped outside. He placed a hand on me and said, "Please brace yourself. This will be a long jump." With a nod from me, we body flickered out of there and landed right in front of the one place I was most wary of. "Why are we here?" I asked with trepidation as I gazed at the massive prison facility in front of me. "I do not know the details. The Hokage requests you," he said, and led me inside. We made our way through more hallways, cells, guards, and prisoners until we caught sight of the Hokage and his ANBU guard. "Hokage-sama," the ANBU bowed and disappeared after a nod from Hiruzen. "Sasuke," the old man turned his head and fixed me with steely eyes as he called out to me. "What is it now?" I asked, annoyed. "It's great to see you healed up and moving around," he said with his usual smile plastered on his face. Though even I could see that the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Sadly, we are short on time, so I'll have to get to the point quickly." "No problem. What am I here for?" I asked. "You see," the Hokage began in a lecturing tone. "Not many of the younger generation knows this, but I was actually Orochimaru's sensei when he was young," he said. "Yeah, I know that. I remember hearing or reading it somewhere." "Ah, I see," he nodded sagely as he took in the information. "This also means that I know him quite well," he continued, "and when we examined the event more closely, his wasteful actions while attacking you seemed out of place. So, we interrogated Orochimaru about this and he said the most surprising thing," the Hokage said, his eyes suddenly becoming sharp. "He said that he wanted some information from you. That was why he didn't kill you instantly." Shii-ite. All that stuff I said about Root. Orochimaru gave in to the interrogation. What the hell? What information? I asked, acting confused. The Hokage eyed me for a second before asking me, "Sasuke, what do you know about Danzo Shimura?" "About what?" I said, making a confused expression. The Hokage sighed, contemplating what to say, and I knew exactly what his dilemma was. He needed to make a decision, and he had three choices here. He could either let me go, assuming Orochimaru was a liar. He could either reveal more information to me and risk giving me top-secret information if I was truly innocent, or he could reveal that top-secret information in the hopes that I would slip up and say something, incriminating myself. "Sasuke," Hiruzen said as he looked at me intently and put 2 fingers on my neck to check my pulse. "Do swear to stay loyal to Konoha unconditionally and never act against it or its interests?" He asked the same question he had asked before once again. He was trying to reaffirm my loyalty to the village. Not a bad move on his part. "Hokage-sama," I said, staring him in the eyes. "I know the truth about my clan and I still decided to side with Konoha even after learning what they were going to do and why they were going to do it. I think you should know my answer by now," I stated with a scowl, and he pinned me with a very calculating gaze. It looked like it was a tough choice for him, but if I was in his place, I would have let me go. After all, I have already assured him that I would never act against Konoha or its interests. "What I am about to tell you is top-secret information, Sasuke," the Hokage said finally. I guess he went with the second option. "And the only reason I'm telling you this is because I believe you are truly loyal to Konoha." I nodded. From there, the Hokage went on to explain the creation and purpose of Root to me and also who Danzo was. However, he held off on explaining Orochimaru's involvement and experiments. "Your thoughts, Sasuke?" he asked me as he finished his explanation. I rubbed my chin as I wondered what the perfect answer would be. I mean, when I think about it, what I truly think about this whole thing would also be the perfect answer in this case. "Well," I began. "A secret special force, created to secretly take missions that Konoha doesn't condone outwardly, huh? Well, $20 or $20, so I guess I like the idea," I said with a nod. "But I hate one thing about it." "And that is?" he asked inquisitively. "It's not under your control," I replied. "A force like this. Especially, a force like this should be directly under the command of the Hokage. Not anyone else. Because the will of the Hokage is the will of the village. So if an OTB operation goes sideways, you can immediately run damage control. I went on to elaborate a bit more. With how it is now, you'll be too late to find out if a route op goes wrong, which gives our enemies an opportunity to take actions, diplomatically and tactically, before us. I finished my explanation. OTB, he asked. Off the books. The Hokage rubbed his chin and thought about my argument in silence for a minute. I see. I'll take your words into consideration, he said. Yeah, I'm honored. Or whatever I'm supposed to say to that, I replied with a shrug. Hiruzen chuckled as he said, as disrespectful as you are, for some reason, your insolence grows on people, and mentioned for me to follow him. I walked in silence beside him as we traversed through the dark, murky prison hallways for a while before coming to a stop in front of a room. Without a word, the Hokage pushed open the door and walked in. I took the cue and followed him in. Surprisingly, it was just like a police interrogation room in my previous world. We were in a room that was behind the mirror with many ANBU and what I assumed were TNI specialists. To my left, there was a one-way mirror that allowed us to look into the adjoined cell that held a kneeling Orochimaru prisoner. The number of seals and chains on him surprised me. I knew he was dangerous, but the lengths that they went to restrain him were amazing. Why is he still alive? I asked immediately. Because we need information from him, the Hokage answered. Oh God, you've got to be shitting me right now. Are you serious? Just for information, you'll keep this fucker alive? Can't you just get the information after making sure that one of the most dangerous men in history is dead? Y'all are dumbass, I said simply. Honestly, I didn't even have the energy to argue right now. The Hokage merely sighed and shook his head while everyone else in the room looked at me incredulously. Well then, what do you suggest, Sasuke? The Hokage asked in an irritated tone, no doubt wanting to show me my place for disrespecting him in front of everyone. Kill him. Kill him with poison, acid, and fire. Make sure this thing doesn't ever come back alive. I yelled, surprised that they were asking me something so simple. That's a great idea, one of the TNI ninjas said sarcastically. Except for one thing. He can revive himself because of the curse marks on the people that he put. Okay, and? I asked. Does Konoha not have a jutsu to call the death god himself to take someone's soul? The entire room went dead silent. Most of them looked at me with disbelief for a moment before the Hokage spoke up. Sasuke, he said in a grave tone of voice. Putting aside the question of how you know about this, we are Konoha shinobi. We do not so blatant sacrifice our comrades like this, he explained. Was he serious right now? Has this old man gone fucking senile? I blinked a couple of times to make sure I really just heard what I think I just heard. But after realizing that he wasn't joking, my anger flared. Oh, piss the fuck off, you old wanker. I said to him. You do not sacrifice comrades. Didn't you sacrifice people in wars? I asked, making a simple argument. Sasuke. Sacrificing yourself to defend your homeland and ordering a sacrifice to kill a prisoner in cold blood is not the same. Hiruzen said, also growing agitated. He sort of had a point there. And the only reason I considered that was because I remembered reading how on Earth, my country's soldiers were probably a major reason the Geneva Convention existed in the first place. Canadian soldiers were really something else during WW1. But I still had to continue. I couldn't take the risk letting this snake bastard get away. Oh. Ordering. I said with a condescending smile on my face. So that's what you're scared of? I asked. You're scared to have the blood of an innocent on your hands. In that case, I'll volunteer. I nearly screamed. I'll gladly sacrifice my life in order to potentially save thousands of lives in the future. 'Cause everyone else, I pointed at the people in the room, even the ANBU, who were getting my point and looking away in shame, is too much of a fucking pussy to do it. I ended and breathed heavily as a blanket of silence descended upon us. That is very noble of you, Sasuke, the Hokage said, cutting the tension in the room with his words. But I cannot allow you to make a sacrifice like that. Man, this guy is just doubling down on his bullshit again and again. TCH, I clicked my tongue at him. Right, but you could allow the sacrifice of Naruto's childhood to appease the villagers, eh? I asked, and I instantly felt the temperature of the room drop by a few degrees. I didn't care though. I continued. You could also allow the sacrifice of an innocent old ninja because of a botched mission so that the younger ninja weren't ostracized, right? I said. Kakashi's father. I said as I saw Hiruzen questioning look. You could also allow the sacrifice of a whole clan. That's enough. Hiruzen roared as he glared at me. This. I said, pointing at his face. This is exactly why you'll never be worthy of respect in my eyes. It's because you don't have the balls to do what it takes for the village. The Hokage eyes narrowed in anger and his chakra flared. I had never seen him like this before and could tell that he was livid. And you do, he almost yelled back at me. Fuck yeah, I do. I said instantly. Fine. Let's see you be Hokage for even a week, then, he said, taking the Hokage's hat, one of the major symbols of the leader of the village, off of his head and nearly smashing it onto mine. Go ahead. Let me see how you deal with this situation then, he said, gesturing to the restrained Orochimaru, who was probably blissfully oblivious to the fight going on in the adjacent room. I blinked in surprise for a second and I was sure everyone else in the room was just as bewildered as me. Was this guy serious? Had age actually caught up to him? Seeing my baffled expression, he chuckled. Don't worry. I'll be looking over your every move. If I feel that you are incompetent, I'll take the hat back at any time I see fit. Oh, that's how he was playing it. He was not only trying to prove a point, but he was trying to make an example out of me. He was trying to show everyone not to question his authority. Well, this fucking bastard's got another thing coming. You'll regret it, I replied, making a challenging expression. Oh? Is that fear? He asked. This fucker. Fine. If that's how he wants it, I'll show him exactly how a real leader deals with shit like this. I adjusted the Hokage hat on my head. Who's in charge of this prison? I asked, walking into the room a little more. Becoming irritated at the blank and confused stares I was getting, I asked again with more weight behind my word. Who's in charge of this prison? I asked again, and this time a man with a Jonin vest on stepped up. I am, he said, unsure of what was going on. You, I said, pointing to him. Go get me a prisoner who is old, is a shinobi and can use chakra, and his family in Konoha outside the prison, I ordered instantly. I had a pretty good plan of how to deal with this situation. Seeing the Jonin's inactivity again, I yelled. Now! Why yes, he said in almost a squeaky voice and rushed past me out of the room. Sarutobi-sama, I said next as I turned to Hiruzen with a smile. His stony expression didn't change. I'm sure you've studied the soul-sealing death god jutsu, haven't you? I asked. I have, he answered with a frown. Great, was all I said as I walked further into the room until I stood in the middle of it. I glared at the traitor that was bound and gagged across in glass and thought for a while about how to punish him. I mean, come on. He tried to kill me, or at the very least, put a creepy-ass curse mark on me. There was no way I was letting this bastard go free. I need 3 of the strongest ANBU to come with me, I said as I walked towards the door that connected this room to the prisoner's room. What are you doing? I heard Hiruzen ask me from behind. What you couldn't do, I replied with an unapologetic voice. Punishing him for even thinking of harming our village. Without waiting for another reply, I turned to the one that looked like the leader of the 3 ANBU that stepped up. What are the chances of him escaping? I asked. Very, very low, Sasuke-sama, he answered. We have bound him using special chakra-absorbing ninja wire, have placed a very large amount of chakra suppression seals on him, and we have multiple failsafes that will kill him in case he still tries to escape. Good, I said and turned back around. I gripped the handle and turned it. Immediately, as the door cracked open, Orochimaru's head whipped towards my direction. The chains he was bound with jingled menacingly as a small shiver ran down my spine. Even without his chakra. Even while seeming so helpless, Orochimaru still has a terrifying presence. Stepping further into the room, the three ANBU took up positions to surround Orochimaru, ready to protect me. Take off his blindfold, I commanded. Sasuke-sama, one the ANBU said incredulously. You heard me, I plowed on. Take off his blindfold. Why yes, sir, he said, cautiously stepping closer to the snake bastard and slowly unraveling the thick black cloth that looked like it was made of special material. As the cloth came free, two sharp eyes with slitted pupils looked at me, making it feel like they were looking directly into my soul. I caught my breath and continued. Can he hear us? I asked. Not to our knowledge. We have a deafening seal on his ears as well, one of the other ANBU answered. Well, that's quite all right, I said with a smile. I looked back into Orochimaru's eyes and spoke. I'm sure that someone as experienced as you can read my lips, am I right, you orphan pedophile? I said, purposefully going for a low blow to make him lose his cool. As I expected, I succeeded and Orochimaru narrowed his eyes dangerously. He glared up at me from his position on his knees as I looked down at him with a condescending smirk. Tell me, you son of a whore. How does it feel to see the hat that you once wished to wear, I said, rubbing my fingers over the brim. On the head of someone 4 times younger than you? I asked. The livid expression stayed on his face as he continued to glare at me, unblinking. Does it feel like this? I asked, rearing my right leg. Orochimaru saw what was coming and tried to shut his own legs, but the chains prevented him from protecting his crown jewels. My leg, augmented by chakra, crashed into his precious package with the force of a truck, and even if he tried to hide the pain, I didn't miss the slight twitches in his eyes and his stomach. Or maybe like this? I asked once more as I reared my leg once more. Again, it came in like a wrecking ball into Orochimaru's, and this time a little grunt escaped him. That's more like it, I said with a wide smile. Now, moving on, I continued. What was it that you said to me in the forest of death? I asked him. Something about my eyes, was it? In truth, I don't think Orochimaru had said anything of the sort, but I needed an excuse for my actions. Ah, I said with a thoughtful expression as my hand came up to rub my chin. What was it again? Was it, those are some fine eyes, Sasuke-kun? Exactly what I was looking for, or something? I asked and nearly guffawed at the shocked look on Orochimaru. So you were going to take my eyes, were you, little snake? I asked in a sickeningly sweet voice. I flicked open my kunai pouch as I took out one of my newly sharpened kunai that was also laced with a slow-acting paralyzing poison. Here's a question for you, Mr. Sannin, I said, inspecting the kunai as I walked slightly closer to him. Before taking someone else's eyes out, do you know how it feels to lose your own? I asked and smiled in genuine happiness at the tiny hint of fear that I saw. MMPH, the grunt came as he struggled against his chains. Hold his head tightly, I ordered the ANBU, and as per my orders, the three trained killers moved in to grip Orochimaru's head and shoulders to prevent him from struggling too much. MMPH, he tried to yell as I assumed he probably tried to flare his chakra. You reap what you sow, you cunt, I said and plunged my kunai into his left eye, though I doubt he knew I said that since he was too busy clenching his eyes shut. Orochimaru tried to grunt and moan as loudly as possible, but I didn't let up. I pulled out my kunai and dug my fingers into the new hole I had just created. Ugh, I dry heaved as it felt slimy and squishy on the inside, but I continued digging around and finally, as I felt that I had gotten a grip on something, I pulled. Oh, God, one of the ANBU said in horror as he saw the mangled up eyeball in my hand. That's what happens to traitors, I replied, dropping the slimy body part on the ground. Orochimaru's labored breathing sounded like church bells in the tiny prison cell. My hand gripped the other side of Orochimaru's face, the one that still had an eye on it, and using my fingers, I pried open his eyelids. "Let's try to do this one a little bit more cleanly, yeah?" I said as I saw his pupil grow and shrink erratically. Not caring about whether or not he heard me, I once again brought my kunai closer to his eye. And as I expected, once again, his thrashing around and grunting started. This time, as I got over my disgust, my curiosity took over and I tried to do the procedure more surgically. I aimed my kunai towards the inner corner of his right eye and pushed in deeper towards the nose. Then, I sliced downwards, going into an arc along the border of the eye and the skull, and bent the handle of the kunai towards me. With a sickening pop, the second eye popped out as well, and it surprised me how easy that was. I let go of Orochimaru's face and held his dangling eye with my hand. "Whoa!" I couldn't help but exclaim as I pulled it and took it out completely and examined it. The ANBU also let go of his face and stepped back a little bit, allowing him to bend down again and let the blood flow freely from his eye sockets. "Well, I hope he's learned his lesson," I said, chucking the eyeball on the ground and motioning to the ANBU to come with me. As we entered the room, I saw that the jonin who was in charge of the prison had returned with another older-looking man that had his hands bound behind his back. "That's the guy?" I asked the jonin. "Yes. His name is," he tried to say, but I cut him off with a raised hand. "Tell me about yourself," I said simply to the man in cuffs, and he looked at me in confusion before turning his head to look at Hiruzen and then back to me. "Is he mute?" I asked the jonin. "No, sir," came the reply. "Is he deaf?" "No, not that either." "Then why the hell isn't he answering?" I inquired. "I believe he is just a little bit shocked by seeing the Hokage's hat on you," one of the ANBU behind me said. I shrugged my shoulders. "Yeah, that's fair," I said before snapping my fingers and breaking the man in front of me out of his thoughts. "Oi!" I said. "Huh," the old shinobi said. "What's your name?" My name is Shinji Uchimura, Hokage-sama," he said with a slight stutter. "HM. Hokage-sama, eh?" I murmured under my breath. "I might just get used to this, you know?" I said out loud to Hiruzen standing to the side. "Don't," the curt reply came. I chuckled at his annoyed visage and continued. "Well, Shinji. What are you in for?" I asked. "I was accused of murder," he said, looking down in shame. "Accused of? Meaning you still say you didn't do it?" I asked curiously. I didn't. It was my teammates. They put all the blame on me because I..." "Stop," I said, interrupting his defensive argument. "I don't care about that. Instead, do you know the reason why you're here, Shinji?" I asked him. "No, Hokage-sama," he answered, looking defeated. "You're here to make a decision," I said. There was a small chance that he'd just agree to lose his life just for no reason. Humans loved feeling needed. Humans loved having a purpose. That's why so many kids in my old world were so easily radicalized by terrorists. And that's why I had to manipulate the options and make them sound appealing. "You have two options here, Shinji," I declared, raising my index finger. "You can either spend the rest of your life in prison and never become a shinobi again. Or," I raised my middle finger, "you can lose your life and be called a hero and be awarded the honor of being the shinobi to kill one of the most dangerous men to have ever lived," I offered. "Huh," the old shinobi said with wide eyes. "Before you make a decision, let me tell you that if you choose the second option, your family in Konoha will be rewarded with a large sum of money, and you will be given a medal posthumously that shall restore your honor," I finished, letting a small smile show at Shinji's disbelieving expression. "What will you choose?" I asked. I will choose the second one," he said with nary a doubt. "Are you absolutely sure?" I asked again. "Yes, Hokage-sama. I have always held Konoha in heart, and if I can help it even a little bit while also being able to restore my and my clan's honor, I will take the chance," he said, sounding much more confident than just a few seconds ago. Good, I nodded and turned to Hiruzen. Well, Saratobi-sama, I said to the old man that stood to the side, observing me carefully. Would kindly do the honors of teaching Shinji the jutsu we were talking about? Hiruzen grunted as he made a motion with his hand, and immediately, two of the ANBU took Shinji out of the room. You tortured him, he spoke in a low voice. He hurt my friends and my sensei, I replied in the same tone. The third Hokage stayed silent for a while, and I understood what was going on in his mind. Maybe it's time you stopped living in the past and looked towards the future, I said, my voice much kinder than earlier. Even if Orochimaru was a terrorist, he was still Hiruzen's student, someone he raised himself. It made sense that the old man had lingering feelings towards him. I suppose you are correct, he said with a sigh as the other jonin and ANBU in the room stared at us with trepidation. Bring him back in. We will put an end to this once and for all, the Sandaime ordered. It was finally time to put the rabid dog down. It took less than 2 hours for Shinji to learn the Reaper Death Seal. Thank you for giving me this chance, Hokage-sama, he said to me as the ANBU got ready to take the chakra suppression seal off of him and send him into the adjoining room. I should be thanking you, Shinji, for your sacrifice, I said with a grateful nod. We shall not forget. Off to the side, one of the Tianai Jonin stood making a ram hand seal, ready to blow the explosive seal on the back of Shinji's neck if he tried to do anything other than follow our instructions. I didn't have anything against him, it was merely a precautionary measure. Shinji nodded back to me and the ANBU took off the chakra suppression seal. With a final breath to steel his nerves, the old prisoner pushed open the door and walked in. We watched from beyond the glass as Shinji slowly went through the needed hand seals with a look of fierce determination on his face. The third Hokage walked up to stand beside me and observed the death of one of his students. When Shinji was nearly halfway through, Hiruzen spoke. I don't know whether I should be amazed or afraid of you, Sasuke-kun, he said with a sigh. I gave him a sideways glance for a moment before turning my attention back to the murder taking place. If I had to choose between the two, I'd rather have him be amazed, obviously. But even more than that, I needed him to see what an asset I am. How about grateful? I asked and felt the third's questioning look on me. Grateful that I'm on your side, I clarified. A hollow chuckle escaped his lips as he shook his head. I suppose that works as well, he said just as Shinji finished his last hand seal and an ethereal figure of the Shinigami manifested behind him. His white hair was spread out like a lion's mane from which two blood-red horns protruded and his sharp teeth held a tanto in his mouth. Truly, this was a higher power if I've ever seen one. Even the way Kagaya's voice made me feel doesn't hold a candle to the sheer feeling of death that this god emitted. Reaper Death Seal. Shinji said, and in front of him, even Orochimaru shivered and struggled in his chains. Sweat dripped from Shinji's brow as the clanking and clanging of the chains and restraints on Orochimaru became louder. Suddenly, one of the Shinigami's hands extended and thrust itself through Shinji's chest, gripping Orochimaru's very soul. Aff! Orochimaru's howl was heard even through the tightly bound gag on his mouth. And slowly, as if extracting a bee stinger from someone's skin, Orochimaru's soul was pulled out inch by inch until it was finally free. The Shinigami's arm receded back through Shinji's chest, pulling Shinji's own soul out as well. Ugh, was the last sound the old ninja ever made as he fell lifelessly on the ground. A thick and heavy silence prevailed within our room as we saw the figure of the god that controlled death itself fade away just as quickly as it appeared. Holy shit, I said, releasing a breath I didn't know I was holding. And the traitorous snake was finally put down. I shall inform Shinji's family of his passing, one of the jonin said, probably wanting to get out of the room as soon as possible. No! I said, stopping him in his tracks. What? The jonin and Hiruzen both said as they looked at me. I turned around to face everyone in the room. Don't get me wrong, we will award him and his family as well, I told them. I mean, come on, I wasn't that much of an ass. Just not right at the moment. I couldn't let the news of Orochimaru's death spread yet. I had other plans. What are you planning, Sasuke? Hiruzen asked me warily. I looked at the Saratobi with a serious gaze. If Orochimaru came to Konoha, there's a high chance that he didn't just come for me, and there's an even higher chance that he didn't come alone. We need to figure out what the rest of his plans are, I said, looking around to make sure everyone was following my line of thought. I obviously already knew the plan of the Sune invasion, but I had to somehow make everyone else realize it as well. That's why we're going to make it look like he escaped while he was heavily injured. This way, his allies won't go ahead with whatever plans they made and instead, will be busy trying to contact him, I explained and got agreeing nods from everyone in the room. But now how will we figure out his plans? Another Jonin from the TNI department asked. I don't know that yet, I admitted and watched in disappointment as everyone deflated. But even if we don't figure out his plans, at least we know that, without Orochimaru in the mix, we will be much better prepared for anything that may come. Encouraging speeches really weren't my style, but I was doing my best. Orochimaru himself was a one-man army. With him gone, whoever our enemies are much weaker now. Whatever happens, we definitely have a much greater chance of success, I said. Internally, I sighed a breath of relief as I saw everyone a little more motivated again. So how do we make it look like he escaped? And ANBU asked. I dunno, I shrugged. That's your job. Saratobi-sama here is probably the closest in terms of strength to Orochimaru, so make sure to use him in your plans as well. And make it look realistic, I ordered. Moving on, I continued, someone make sure to clean all this up, I gestured to the room behind me. Take Shinji's corpse and keep it fresh and take Orochimaru's corpse to the science department or whatever for them to examine it. Who knows how many secrets are in there? It may be unethical, but I didn't give a shit. Understood, sir, the ANBU and the Warden Jonin said at once. Good, I replied with a smile. Now, I'll be going home to sleep, I said before feeling a vice-like grip on my shoulders. I asked, following the arm up to Hiruzen's face that was smiling a little bit too sweetly. Oh, Hokage-sama, he said in the same tone of voice I used when mocking him. Don't forget about the paperwork that the Hokage has to do. Oh shit. Never before have I cursed myself for not thinking before jumping into situations more than I was cursing myself now. And no, I wasn't saying that because of the massive piles of, relatively not-so-secret, paperwork on the Hokage's desk. No, it was because of the wide innocent-looking cerulean blue eyes staring at me with a hint of betrayal in them. Sasuke. Naruto said with disbelief. You. He trailed off, not knowing what to say. Naruto, I spoke with a serious tone. I swear to God, this isn't what it looks like. I tried to convince him. But again, in my defense, the Hokage had practically challenged me to do this. What was I supposed to do? Just say no? Screw that. Sasuke Uchiha never backs down from a challenge. Which will probably be the death of me one day. How did you become Hokage? He asked in a soft tone of voice that he rarely showed anyone, and if I was being honest, it stabbed me right in the feels. It's just for a week, and it was only because this guy, I jabbed my thumb at the third Hokage sitting beside me, challenged me to it. I said, explaining the circumstances as quickly as possible. Challenge. Naruto repeated, looking at Hiruzen with a baffled expression. Naruto-kun, Hiruzen said. Why don't you take a seat here? He gestured to the chairs across from the Hokage's table. I was currently sitting on the main Hokage chair behind the table while Hiruzen was sitting on another identical chair a couple of feet away from me. Naruto nodded slowly as if in a trance before taking a seat. How did this happen? He asked. Before I tell you that, I began before Hiruzen could say anything. I need you to promise that what I'm about to tell you stays a closely guarded secret, I demanded, and Naruto perked up at that. In sharp contrast from his usual exuberant personality, the Naruto in front of me at this moment was a very serious one. Okay, I promise, he said with a nod. Sasuke. Hiruzen said with a cautioning gaze. What? I asked as I turned my attention to him. Do you think he can't keep a secret? That's not. Because he kept the QB a secret from us, his own teammates, until he was sure he could trust us, I said, interrupting Hiruzen. I think we can trust him. Hiruzen only stared at me with a contemplative gaze as I stared back, daring him to argue. Finally, he nodded a little bit and I started speaking to the confused blonde sitting across from me. So, Naruto, I said, placing my elbows on the table and interlacing my fingers in front of my mouth as I looked at him. You know how we fought Orochimaru in the Forest of Death? I asked, to which he nodded. Did you know we captured him alive? I asked again, to which I got another nod. Okay, so when the TNI department was interrogating him, he said something which led to the Sarutobi-sama calling me there. I got to the place, and we kind of fought over why the international terrorist wasn't killed already, I explained, and Naruto balked. You? He said slowly. Fought with the Hokage? He asked. No, I replied immediately. I fought with the third Hokage, I said with a smirk. You know, since I'm the Hokage right now. Don't get used to it, came a grumble from the previous Hokage who was sitting beside me. Anyway, I chuckled and continued, trying to wipe the smirk off my face but failing. We kind of fought and I told him he didn't have it in him to make the decisions a real Hokage had to. So he asked me whether I did, and I said yes, so he challenged me to run this village better than he does for a week, and that's how we're here. I finished my explanation cheerfully. A moment of heavy silence stretched between us before anyone spoke. Wow! Naruto said with wide eyes. That is awesome. With the amount of paperwork that I have to do, trust me, it isn't, I answered with a grumble. Oh. But you get to do cool Hokage stuff, right? Naruto asked with excitement evident in his eyes. What fucking cool Hokage stuff are you talking about? Filling out paperwork? I asked. Naruto said, looking surprised and slightly downtrodden at my words. No, I mean, like, you know, cool Hokage stuff, he said, repeating himself and not clearing anything up. I sighed and looked at my lovable blonde teammate with tired eyes. Unless you think management is cool, Naruto, there is literally nothing cool about being Hokage, I said, mentally adding, except for the top secret missions and knowledge and shit. That stuff is definitely super cool. Naruto looked like someone had just shot him through the heart. Wait, what? But? He trailed off. Yeah, I replied, seeing a war of reasoning being waged in himself. There is nothing cool about this job. Naruto thought about my words for a second before he perked up once more. Oh. But you're respected by everyone, right? He asked. Nope. I said instantly. Huh? You don't get respect because you become Hokage, Naruto, I said, trying to sound as serious as possible. You become Hokage because you're respected. Think about it, why would someone who isn't respected by people in the first place become the Hokage? I asked him. But? I thought. Naruto said with a thoughtful look as realization dawned on his face, and after a short moment of silence, I smiled as he nodded his head, finally understanding my point. Anyway, I said, breaking the blonde out of his stupor and ending this conversation. What were you here for in the first place? I asked him. Oh. Ero-sennin said to come and get some missions to do by myself. Naruto answered enthusiastically. I've told you not to call me that, you brat. Another voice boomed as the man that I was expecting to see anytime now entered the Hokage's office, my office. I narrowed my eyes at the toad sage now standing beside my desk. In all of Naruto, Jiraiya was my second most hated character. Sasuke was first because of how he abandoned his village and nearly killed Naruto, but at least now I was in Sasuke's body and actively making changes to the plot. However, this old white-haired piece of shit standing beside me right now. I hated how he wasn't there for Naruto despite being Naruto's father's teacher. But I held off on any remarks that I might have wanted to make. I'm going to get all the information first. Did Jiraiya know his godson was an orphan, suffering in the village? Did he willingly leave? Or did the dickhead of a third Hokage deceive him? Although, before that, I want to know how it feels to abuse your authority. I called out, and the Toad Sannin looked at me with mirthful eyes. Hokage at this age? Not bad, kid, he said with an amused smirk. Keeping a stone-cold expression on my face, I jabbed my thumb, gesturing to the windows behind me. Get out. Walk in through the door. Climb the stairs. And when you're in front of my office, knock. You'll come in when I allow you to come in, I ordered, and man, it felt great ordering around a shinobi who could probably kill me in less than a microsecond. I couldn't help the smile that crept up on my face as I observed his gobsmacked reaction. Do you know who I am? He asked, unsure of how to proceed. I do, and I don't give a flying fuck, I said, dropping the smile from my face, yet laughing my heart out internally. The one in this chair is me. The one wearing the Hokage's hat is me. You are a shinobi of the leaf. You follow my orders. Go, I ordered again. What, sensei, is he serious? Jiraiya said to the third Hokage. Sasuke-kun, that is Jiraiya of the Sannin. The Toad Sage of Mount Mayaboku, Hiruzen said from beside me. I know that, I answered simply. And, as I said, I don't care. The Toad Sage's mouth opened and closed several times in surprise before he straightened up and crossed his arms. He looked at me with narrowed eyes and said, fine, and went back out the window. As he jumped off, a heavy silence descended in the room. Huh? I thought he'd challenge my orders more, I said in a light-hearted voice. Why do you love to antagonize everyone, Sasuke-kun? The third Hokage asked with a sigh. I shrugged my shoulders with an uncaring attitude as I turned to Naruto. As for you, Naruto, here's what I want you to do, I said, taking a blank scroll. Wait, Hiruzen said, and I looked at him exasperatedly. What is it now? I asked. I need to know what mission you're giving him. Yeah, okay, that made sense. I'm telling him to make friends with the Suna Jinchuriki, I declared. Hiruzen raising his eyebrows was the only reply I got, so I continued. I opened up the blank scroll and picked up a quill dipped in ink. So, Naruto, I said, writing on the scroll at the same time. What I want you to do is find Sabaka no Gara, the crazy redhead guy we saw in the examination room, and just talk to him and make friends. Wait, just make friends? How? Naruto asked. Dunno, just be yourself. Be cheerful, be nice, do whatever you want. Your mission is to just talk to him and his siblings if possible, and become friends with them. And as I said, be yourself. Don't beat around the bush if you want to say something to them, and don't worry about offending them. Just act like you normally would when trying to make friends, I briefed him. Just as I finished my sentence, a knock came from the door. I grunted and Jiraiya sauntered in, not looking happy at all. I nodded my thanks and turned my attention back to the blonde. But what did you mean by Jinchuriki of Suna? Naruto asked. When I looked at Gaara with my Sharingan, I saw that his chakra sort of looked like you, I lied skillfully. I was way too good at this. No shot anyone would be able to tell I was lying. While you look like you have foreign chakra in your stomach, he looked like he had foreign chakra in his shoulders? Or chest, I think. I said with uncertainty. I forgot where exactly Gaara's seal was. Oh. Naruto said, looking downtrodden, and I knew exactly what he was thinking. You're upset that someone else has to suffer in the same way you did. It was more of a statement than a question. Naruto instantly looked at me with wide eyes. Don't be so surprised, I said with a chuckle. After knowing you for this long, I know exactly how you think. And that's why you're the perfect person for this job, Naruto, I said, reassuring him. You're the only one who can probably understand his pain and empathize with him. I need you for this, Naruto, I said to him, making him feel needed. Naruto's eyes looked like they were watering for a bit before he quickly rubbed them and flashed the cheekiest grin I'd ever seen. You got it, Sasuke. I won't let you down, he exclaimed, giving me a big thumbs up. A small smile floated onto my face as I nodded. Since this is technically a mission that deals with international relations, I'll give it a B rank, and you'll get paid accordingly, I said to him and turned to Hiruzen. Right, Sandy-sama? I asked. He nodded with a grunt. That sounds reasonable. Alright then, Naruto, I said as I rolled up the mission scroll and threw it to him. That's your mission until the Chunin exams end. Gotcha. Thanks, Sasuke, he said cheerfully as he ran out of my office and hit the streets. Now, this left Jiraiya in my office, looking at me with an expression that I couldn't quite decipher. Now, how can I help you, Jiraiya? I asked with an amicable smile. You got anything against me, kid? He asked. That depends. Are you one to disregard authority? I questioned back. From beside me, Hiruzen said, Sasuke-kun, I believe this is the pot calling the kettle black. Aha! I knew he'd say that. Sarutobi-sama, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever gone against any of your or Kakashi's explicit orders, I said. The ANBU don't count. All other than links are dickheads. At least, all the ones I've met, I quickly added. Hiruzen hummed with his eyes closed. Anyway, I needed to ask you something, I said to Jiraiya, getting his and Hiruzen's full attention. You're Konoha's spymaster, correct? That's right, he said unsurely. So what's going on with Otogekure? What's the situation with them? I asked, wanting to know how much information Konoha already had about them. Jiraiya looked at me with a raised eyebrow before looking back at his sensei. Hiruzen nodded. Sasuke-kun has made it clear multiple times that he will never act against Konoha or its interests, correct? He asked me. If I ever knowingly do so, feel free to cut me down on the spot, I replied, hoping to cement their trust in me. I believe you can trust him, Jiraiya, the Sandaime said. Jiraiya sighed as took a seat as he started telling me about the information he had gathered. I sighed as Jiraiya finished relaying the information. They didn't have much right now. All they knew was that it was a relatively new hidden village that popped up in the Land of Sound. The Land of Sound itself was a new country. They used to be known as the Land of the Rice Paddies, but after much political strife, a new daimyo rose and formed a new country. I see, I said, exhaling. Now, how do I tell them to be wary of the country without seeming suspicious? By the way. Jiraiya spoke before I could say anything. I asked. Why are you so interested in Otogekure? He asked as Hiruzen also looked at me. Right before the second stage of the Chunin exams started, I started lying skillfully. I saw the three Oto-genin interacting with the Kusa Kunoichi who turned out to be Orochimaru. Now, it could have been just a random interaction between the two with no real meaning behind it. But we're shinobi. We don't believe in coincidences, right? I finished. Jiraiya nodded with a serious expression on his face as he pulled out a little notebook and wrote something in it. Hiruzen also hummed from beside me as he stroked his beard. Perfect. I got them thinking about this. Now, all I need to do is take precautionary measures to stop the invasion. What do the border patrols look like right now? I asked, surprising both of the old men. That is highly classified information, Sasuke-kun, Hiruzen said, but before I could retort, he continued. However, you look like you have a good idea, and I do trust you enough at the moment, he said as he looked at me with an approving gaze. Oh. I didn't know what to say. Why the hell was he being nice to me, damn it? This was so goddamn awkward now. Thanks, I guess? I said, looking away in embarrassment. Jiraiya chuckled a little while Hiruzen stood up and gestured for me to follow him. Come. I shall show you to the barrier division, he said as he started walking towards the door. Yeah, alright, I replied as I stood up and picked up the Hokage's hat and placed it on my head. The motions came so naturally that I even surprised myself with how elegantly I did it. Don't get used to it, kid, Jiraiya said with a smirk as he followed us. I guess I was still too easy to read. I really needed to work on hiding my emotions better. Yeah, I said, exasperated at how many times I'd heard that already. But, now that I think about it, me being Hokage for real wouldn't even be, like, out of line or anything, I said as I thought about it. What do you mean? Jiraiya asked as the three of us walked out of the tower and stepped onto one of the side streets. I mean, the Shodame was Hashirama Senju, the Nidame was Tobarama, his brother, the Sandame is Sarutobi-sama, their student, the Yandame was Minato Namikaze, who you taught, and if I'm not mistaken, and you were taught by the Sandame. You see the pattern? I asked as I looked at the Sannin. I do, he replied simply. I shrugged my shoulders in response. I'm just saying. It only makes sense that the next Hokage would be either Kakashi, Naruto, Sakura, or in the worst case, me. Or Tsunade, if she were to come back through some miracle. I said the last part with a whisper, though I'm sure Hiruzen and Jiraiya heard me. Why do you say worst case, Sasuke-kun? Hiruzen asked as he turned his head to look over his shoulder. Cause then that'd mean that the village must be getting goddamn desperate if they can't find a more competent leader than me, I replied. And it was true. I sucked at diplomacy and I'd probably start a war during my very first meeting with another world leader. I think you're underestimating yourself, kid, Jiraiya said with a smirk. You did a damn fine job of ending Orochimaru, something neither sensei nor I was able to do for the longest time, he added in a slightly bitter tone of voice. That was probably only because of my lack of empathy towards him, I replied. You and Sarutobi-sama have known Orochimaru since he was a kid. You've seen his potential for good. That's why you both hoped that he'd one day come back, I said. While that still doesn't excuse either of you, with me only knowing about his evil side, it probably contributed heavily to why I was able to order his death so easily. Neither Jiraiya nor Hiruzen replied as they both only stared off thoughtfully into the distance. The rest of the trip continued in silence as the sensei and student contemplated what I assumed were their choices. I could only hope that my speech brought forth a stronger sense of responsibility in them. You summoned us, Hokage-sama? Shikako said as entered the large conference room. Yes. I did, I answered, even though he was clearly talking to Hiruzen. He raised an eyebrow and I chuckled a little bit internally as I could see my answer threw him off a bit. Everyone, please take your seats, I commanded as all the clan heads filed into the room. I sighed tiredly, observing how the clan heads merely opted to stand around and look at each other with confusion. It had honestly been a long day today. I had made huge changes to the border patrols, bringing about a whole rejig to the leadership positions of the platoons and sections, and I had ordered an expedited renovation of the barrier seals on Konoha's walls. I remembered how in canon, soon as Shinobi had evaded Konoha's border patrols and had made it all the way to Konoha's front door for the invasion. And there was only one way this was possible. If Orochimaru had Mizuki and Kabuto on his payroll, I could only guess how many more of our shinobi were corrupt. And a few border patrol leadership positions being compromised wasn't really that far-fetched of a possibility. After explaining all that, save for the Suna invasion part, Hiruzen and even Jiraiya had agreed that this was a long time coming. Now, with that completed, this was the last thing on my agenda for today. Are you guys deaf or are you disobeying a direct order from your commander-in-chief? I asked once more. Hokage-sama, what is the meaning of this? One of them asked. He had long black hair and featureless white eyes. Hayashi Hyuga. Of course, he'd be the number one asshole that had trouble adapting to the situation. I clicked my tongue and opened my mouth to answer but was quickly interrupted by Hiruzen's hand on my shoulder. Sasuke-kun, perhaps it'd be in everyone's best interest if I explained the situation first, he said. I rolled my eyes. He had a point. Fine, I said, gesturing for him to go ahead. Hiruzen cleared his throat as he stood up to address the clan heads. I apologize for the confusion, everyone. Due to certain circumstances, Uchiha-san is the current acting Hokage until further notice, he explained and sat down. Murmurs of confusion went around the room once more, but I didn't have time for this, damn it. I just wanted to go home and sleep. Take your seats, I commanded once more in a forceful tone, bringing everyone's attention to me. For a second, nothing happened and I thought I was going to have to come up with another way to make them obey me. But finally, the Nara clan head, Shikaku, finally moved and quietly sat down on a chair. Following him, Sum and Izuka sat down as well. So did Inoichi and Choza. Then came Shibi Aburame. And finally, Hayashi took a seat. Danzo and the other elders were already seated. Good. Now that we're all here, let's begin, I said. Immediately, a hand went up and a sigh of annoyance escaped me. Yes, Inuzuka-san? I asked. How did this happen? Why are you the Hokage right now? Sum asked without beating around the bush, and honestly I appreciated her straightforwardness. The exact reasons for that remain classified until at least the end of the Chunin exams. I'm sorry I cannot tell you more, I answered. I received a nod of acknowledgement from her and smiled. Thankfully, she wasn't questioning my authority. Any other questions before we begin? I asked. No one spoke up and so I started. Now, with a show of hands, I said. How many of you have walls around your clan compounds? Confusion was evident on everyone's faces as they murmured to each other once more. I merely opted to wait patiently until they could stop behaving like school kids and follow simple fucking directions. Once again, it started with Shikaku who put his hand up, followed by Shibi, Sum, and Hayashi. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Hiruzen raising his hand too. It seemed like no one else's clan compound had walls. Perfect, I said. I raised my hand and snapped my fingers. Immediately, an ANBU operative appeared behind me and started handing out a pencil and a paper to everyone that had their hand up. You have exactly 3.5 minutes to write a convincing paragraph about why the walls should stay. Your time begins now, I said. This is preposterous. Our clan's walls have been there since the founding of Konoha. Why does there need to be a reason for the walls to stay? Why do we have to convince you? Hayashi said with an indignant tone. 3 minutes and 20 seconds, I merely replied as I closed my eyes and tuned out the rambling. All right. Time's up. I announced, having given them 4 minutes rather than the originally intended 3.5 minutes. The ANBU quickly collected the papers and passed them on to me. Let's start with you, Nara-san, shall we? I started. What are your reasons for keeping the walls around your compound? I asked, not even glancing at the paper. There are none, Hokage-sama, Shikaku answered, surprising me. Wait, what? I said as I picked up his paper and read it. Please order us to demolish our walls, was all it read. Huh? Why? I asked, holding up the paper. Hokage-sama, many of our clan members believe that the walls do not truly serve a purpose, rather it only isolated us from the village citizens. It is only the opinions of the traditionalist clan elders that believe that the walls should remain. However, if you were to give the order to demolish them, the majority of the Nara clan would be in your favor, he drawled lazily. Additionally, the majority of the villagers are already aware of our deer's forests and the boundary of those grounds as well. Perfect! I exclaimed. This was the perfect chance to introduce my new method of giving out orders. KODs, I said, and another ANBU instantly materialized behind me and handed me a piece of thick paper. I inspected the paper, making sure it was the correct one, and looked up at the clan heads. Until now, I began. Whenever the Hokage, or just the Konoha administrative headquarters wanted to convey a message to anyone, they would just send a scroll with the message and that's it. It was a very disorganized way of communicating information and the records were all over the place. That is no longer the case. I am introducing a new change. Any new general orders will be called the Konoha Orders and Directives, or KODs, I said. I retrieved the seal of the Hokage that the ANBU was holding out and stamped it onto the paper in front of me. This will be one of the first KODs to be issued, I stated. KOD 5044-2, Nara clan compound boundaries and walls. I held the paper up and the ANBU took it from me and delivered it across the table to Shikaku. The KODs shall state exactly what is expected from all Konoha shinobi pertaining to that specific subject. New KODs regarding every aspect of life in Konoha are currently being made and can be found by asking the Health and Safety Jonin for them. That's another position that you will have to assign someone to, Shikaku-san, I said and received an acknowledging nod. Hokage-sama? Shibi spoke as he raised his hand. Yes, Aburame-san? I said. Are there KODs pertaining to activities that are dictated by the clans as well? He asked. Yes, I answered simply before elaborating. There are general orders and directives for everything, however clans can submit requests to the Hokage to make and or change orders to make them more suitable to you. I see. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Shibi said, satisfied with my answer. No problem. I said and continued. Now where were we? Right, Tsum-san, please explain your reasons for keeping the walls around your compound. Some shrugged in a nonchalant manner as she spoke. It's mostly just to keep the young pups from running out of the compound. Other than that, well, most of our clan doesn't really care about it. I hummed as I stroked my chin. Then would it be okay if the walls were demolished and only rebuilt around the area where you take care of the young ones? That could work, Tsum said as she looked up and rubbed one of the red markings on her face. Perfect, I said and repeated the KOD process as I had with Shikaku. Next, Sarutobi-san? I prompted. I didn't use the sama suffix since I wasn't talking to the third Hokage right now. I was talking to the Sarutobi clan head. I believe it would be in the best interest of everyone to demolish the Sarutobi clan walls as well, he said, surprising me. I honestly thought he'd be very much against it, wanting to guard his clan training techniques and whatnot, but meh, this worked out perfectly. Done, I said before he could change his mind. Another KOD stamped. Aburame-san? I asked. Hokage-sama, I strongly believe our clan walls need to remain in place as we regularly conduct secret experiments on our Kakachu and there are clans in other villages that also use insect-based techniques, he explained. I see, I said. It made sense, but I still didn't like the idea of them isolating themselves like that. Would it be possible to have walls only around your research area? I asked. Each family conducts research by themselves in their own homes. There isn't a dedicated research area, he explained. I hummed. This was unfortunate, but I never expected things to go smoothly anyway. Alright, we'll talk more about coming up with another solution on another date, I said as I stamped another KOD that had a directive to leave things as they were. Hyuga-san? I moved on to the last clan head. Sasuke-san, I strongly believe that the walls around the Hyuga compound should stay, Hayashi replied. Now, I wasn't a stickler for social rules and stuff, but that was only when I knew that the other party had the appropriate respect towards me. Hayashi's blatant disregard for my current position as Hokage didn't go unnoticed by any of the clan heads. Not only did he not call me Hokage-sama, but he didn't even use Uchiha-san, which meant that he clearly didn't see me at the same level as him. I merely stared at Hayashi with a neutral expression on my face. A minute passed. Then 2. Then 3. 5 extremely uncomfortable, for everyone other than me, minutes later, I finally spoke. Hyuga-san, I said. We salute the rank, not the person. And from the subtle widening of his eyes, I could tell he understood my point. I was only calling him Hyuga-san out of respect for his position as clan head, not because I respected him. But let's put that aside for now, I continued. What are your reasons to keep the walls? I asked. The Hyuga's techniques and training methods have been a closely guarded secret for generations, Hayashi answered. Guarded from who? I asked, exaggerating the confused expression on my face. No one can use your techniques unless they have the Byakugan. Who exactly are you trying to keep them a secret from? Even if you gave a non-Hyuga your entire training manual, it would just be useless to them since they can't even use it, I said. So please, give me a better explanation. Hayashi scowled slightly before he gave another excuse. The village charter states that the boundaries of the Hyuga compound encompasses the area from the center of the compound to the walls. There will be another KOD to amend the charter. Next, I interrupted. I internally smirked as I heard Hayashi grind his teeth. This KOD, I said, taking another one that the ANBU handed me and putting it on the table, will be stamped and made official at exactly 1,700 hours tomorrow. You have until then to convince me otherwise, I stated. Without waiting for an answer, I addressed the rest of the council. Does anyone have any other questions, comments, or concerns? It was surprising how quiet he was during the meetings, but finally, Danzo spoke up. Hokage-sama, he began. I heard that Orochimaru was captured and is in Konoha custody now. May we have an updated sitrep, he requested. Wait, what? We have Orochimaru. Sume exclaimed. And she wasn't the only one that wasn't surprised. Everyone other than Hiruzen, Danzo, and Shikaku was staring at me, their eyes practically begging for answers. I sighed and opened my mouth to speak, but Hiruzen stopped me. Sasuke-kun, this is a highly classified matter, he spoke quietly. What? I said, confused why he was telling me this. Yeah, I know. Just trust me, okay? I know what I'm doing, I replied, waving his concerns away. I turned to the council once more. Yes, Orochimaru is in our custody. We have been trying to interrogate him, however our attempts so far have been unsuccessful. That's all the information that I can give you right now, I announced. Hokage-sama, may I have a chance to interrogate him as well? Danzo asked. No, I replied immediately. I have another task for you, I said, putting an end to his request. Anything else that needs to be addressed? I asked. When no one said anything, I stood up. All right then. Everyone is dismissed, I concluded the meeting and walked out the door with Hiruzen. You handled that very well, Sasuke-kun, Hiruzen said as he walked beside me. Yeah, thanks, I answered nonchalantly. It wasn't that I didn't care about the compliment. I was just way too tired today to put some real energy behind my words of gratitude. Would you like an ANBU detail to escort you home? Hiruzen asked as we approached the office of the Hokage. I shook my head. The day isn't over yet, I replied. Out of my peripheral vision I could see Hiruzen frowning at my words. Dedication to your work is a good thing, but resting and taking breaks is also necessary, he said, providing some important words of wisdom. I'll have all my life to rest, I said. I was sure the fatigue was evident in my voice. But I only have a few days to make the necessary changes in the village. Hiruzen grunted as he understood my intentions. And what more do you plan on doing tonight? He asked as we entered the Hokage's office. Summon the ANBU commander, I said. I want to know where Danzo's route command post is. 3 squadrons of ANBU stood, formed up in front of me on the roof of the Hokage building. Beside me stood Hiruzen, presumably marveling at my level of composure. A little behind and to the right of me stood Shikaku, the Jonin commander, and in line with him to my left stood Asuma, and Guy for extra backup. Company, attention! The ANBU commander yelled as at once, all noise and movement ceased and all the operatives stood ramrod straight. The commander did an about turn. 145 ANBU on parade, Hokage-sama, he said and executed a perfect salute. I, as well, stood at attention and returned the salute. Thank you, Commander, I replied. The commander nodded and walked away to stand beside Hiruzen, effectively transferring command over to me. At ease, I commanded, and as one, the operatives stood at ease, legs shoulder-width apart and hands behind their back. I smiled slightly at how natural it felt. This is what an army should look like. As shinobi of Konoha, I began my speech. It is our first and foremost duty to protect this beautiful village of ours from all threats, foreign and domestic. I paused for effect. And as much as it pains me to say it, this time the threat is domestic. It's a cruel world out there. Some of you know that better than me. Many of you have experienced that cruelty firsthand. And to protect our loved ones, our brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, and our children from those demons, sometimes we have to become demons ourselves. There's always a brave few that willingly take it upon themselves to become those demons so that the others may sleep peacefully. But that's just it. Willingly. As shinobi, we rarely fight honorably, however the concept of honor itself is not lost on us. But sometimes, some shinobi lose themselves in the dark and it is our job to either bring them back and show them the light, or put them down like the rabid dogs that they are. This operation that we will be carrying out tonight has one purpose. It is not to rid the darkness, but to control it instead. You will face heavy resistance as you step into the root bases, however you will use every skill in your repertoire to handle the situation in a non-lethal way. Of course, it goes without saying that if your life is in jeopardy, you shall do everything you can to save yourself. But remember, the root shinobi that you will face are not evil. They are sick. They are merely mindless drones following orders. They don't deserve death, they need therapy. And lastly, they are still citizens of Konoha, I said, finishing my speech. Commander, I said, nodding to the ANBU commander, handing over command of the company. Thank you, Hokage-sama, he said as he moved to stand in front of the operatives once more and we exchanged salutes. Instantly, everyone jumped into a flurry of activity. The ANBU commander started barking out orders with Shikako providing input here and there. The weapons detachment section of each platoon started handing out extra supplies to whoever needed them. Asuma talked to some of his old ANBU friends as he too got ready for the operation and Guy jumped off to go find a few more jonin who might want to join and whose skills might be of use. I sighed as I looked at the controlled chaos around me. Today would either be the day that Konoha pulled its act together, or the day when everything would go to shit. Where did you learn to speak like that? Hiruzen asked me, apparently impressed by my public speaking skills. We were back in the Hokage office. Hiruzen and I were seated behind the desk while Shikaku and a couple of other ANBU were in the room, receiving and compiling the situation reports coming in from other ANBUs. The operation was proceeding smoothly so far. HM? What do you mean? Your speech on the rooftop. It was really something. I shrugged my shoulders. I didn't learn it anywhere, I answered honestly. I just said exactly what I was thinking. Hiruzen hummed as he stroked his goatee. You might have the natural qualities of a leader, Sasuke-kun. That's great, I said with no enthusiasm in my voice whatsoever. How do I turn them off? The third Hokage merely sighed in response as he picked up the latest report that had come in. It looks like they've already made it to Danzo's office and have him detained. They're only clearing out the remaining forces now, he said, seemingly impressed by how quickly and smoothly the operation had gone. But I wasn't nearly as optimistic about this. Remember, I said, reciting one of Murphy's laws of war from memory. When everything is going according to plan, you've walked into an ambush, I said. Shikako-san, tell each and every fire team to be on extremely high alert, I commanded. Understood, Shikaku replied with a nod. Just then, another ANBU walked into the office and saluted. Hokage-sama, she said. They're ready for you. A ghost of a smile graced my face for a second. Perfect. Let's go, I said, standing up and putting on the Hokage hat. You've grown senile, Hiruzen, the gruff voice said as the third Hokage walked into Danzo's lair with me following him. Handing over the mantle of the Hokage to a mere child? What are you thinking? He said with a scowl. It was so weird how he had absolutely no problem calling me Hokage-sama just a few hours prior during the council meeting, yet he was finally showing his true colors now. Danzo Shimura, I said as I walked into the underground office space. I made no attempt to hide my fascination as I observed his office. Nice place. Feels homey, I commented. Danzo didn't reply, merely opting to show his disapproval by glaring at me. Unfazed, I continued. Do you know why we're here, Danzo? I asked as I took a seat behind the massive desk that stood imposingly in the center of the room. As I stared back at Danzo, I could see Hiruzen smirking from the corner of my eye. Of course, Hiruzen might have handed over some of his authority as Hokage over to me temporarily, but that didn't mean I could just execute an operation of this scale without his approval. We had thoroughly gone over the need for such an operation, and the planning for it in detail before he had begrudgingly given me the go-ahead. Danzo finally spoke, acknowledging my question. Because the senile third Hokage here handed you the mantle of the Hokage, told you about Root, and you with your naive worldview decided that Root and I must be put down. Am I correct, Hokage-sama? He asked, spitting out the title as if it was venom. I could do nothing but raise my eyebrows, surprised that he thought that poorly of me. What? I asked, slightly offended that he thought I was really that stupid. No. Not at all. Quite the opposite, in fact. I exclaimed. The old Warhawk's face didn't betray any emotion, but I could tell he was a little confused at least. In the end, I only sighed. Why don't you take a seat and I'll tell you what I'm really here for? I offered, gesturing to one of the chairs across the table. I'd much rather stand, thank you, Danzo replied simply. I raised an eyebrow. What? Are you scared one of the ANBU will slice your head off from behind you? I asked. 'Cause they won't. I swear, I said without waiting for an answer. Danzo merely stared at me as he stood silently. Aight, I said as I shrugged my shoulders. Listen, I started explaining why I was here. I understand the need for your entire secret Black Ops division. Hell, I'm even all for funding you guys more and expanding Root a bit more, I said and internally smirked as I noticed an almost imperceptible twitch on Danzo's face. But there's only one thing that doesn't sit well with me. Can you guess what it is? I asked him. I cannot, the curt answer came and I sweat dropped at the straightforwardness. Let me feel cool, damn it. I sighed as I answered my question. It's the fact that the Hokage has no knowledge of his own shinobi's dealings, I said. Danzo narrowed his eyebrow at my answer. It's so that the Hokage may have plausible deniability, he replied. And that is great thinking on your part, I said. Except for one thing. What happens when Root operatives get caught in the act and the enemy has evidence that Konoha is involved? What can the Hokage say when, say, Kumo comes to our doorstep with evidence, demanding for an explanation as to why we were in their land? I asked. At that moment, the Hokage will deny any involvement, Danzo replied. Okay, but the fact still remains that if the enemy has evidence of our involvement and the Hokage doesn't know anything about it, then it's Konoha who's going to look bad on the world stage. How the hell can a leader not know what his own forces are doing? That's the question that will spread through every Kage's mind, and consequently every client's mind. In the end, it only hurts our own reputation. I explained, hoping that Danzo had at least enough sense to see my point. Danzo glanced at Hiruzen who smirked back and looked back towards me. I instantly recognized the gesture, mainly because Naruto, Sakura, and I usually did the same thing. With only a glance we'd be able to have an entire conversation and that was because we knew each other so well. Tell me I'm wrong, Danzo, I challenged the man. A long drawn-out silence followed wherein neither of us spoke. Finally, it was Hiruzen who broke the silence. I believe even you see Sasuke-kun's point, old friend, Hiruzen said to his old teammate. Danzo huffed with a scowl, not being able to argue against that. And what changes do you propose, Hokage-sama? He said the last word with a mocking tone, though it didn't bother me in the slightest. I smiled. Root will only accept members from Konoha's forces. Root shall cease making its operatives into emotionless soldiers at once, no more of that training. The entire organization will have an oversight committee made of 4 highly experienced and highly trusted jonin, and the Hokage. And finally, all operations carried out in peacetime will require the Hokage's approval beforehand. I laid out the terms plainly. The existence of Root is hidden from the majority of our shinobi. How could Root possibly accept members from the Konoha armed forces while keeping that level of security? Danzo asked. Simple, I smirked. You don't ask to join Root. You get invited, I said and pulled out a piece of paper. You will have a few operatives continuously monitoring Konoha's forces for anyone that looks promising or has potential. When you identify such a person, you shall give them something like this, I explained, sliding the piece of poorly made recruitment poster across the table. Danzo, being satisfied with my answers so far, finally walked towards the seat I had offered him earlier and sat down as he observed the paper. I watched in satisfaction as Danzo's singular eye widened slowly upon reading the paper. I had made sure to not underplay what an absolutely shitty job being a Root operative was. And in very clear terms, the poster had said, Konoha Covert Operations Command Recruitment Notice. In darkness we prevail. Always lead, never abandon, tread the unknown, never yield, always in battle, all for victory. Your service is desired. Extremely hazardous battlefields, poor wages, very long gloomy deployments, constant danger to life, slim chance of safe return, rare rewards for success. If interested, contact the Hokage and hand them this flyer. What is this? He said with a frown. Root will never be able to recruit anyone if they read something like this. I think you underestimate the willingness of our shinobi to sacrifice themselves for a greater cause, Danzo, I said to him with a smile. Seeing as how he was still skeptical, I motioned to one of the ANBU that was stationed at the doorway. Can you come here, please? I asked. Yes, Hokage-sama, the ANBU said as she appeared beside the table. Don't get into the details, but other than wanting to serve your village, why did you join ANBU? I asked curiously. She said with uncertainty, not expecting this question. Don't worry, no one's gonna judge you, I replied, easing her worries. I had just lost my entire team on a mission gone bad at the time and I wanted some space and to improve as a kunoichi, Hokage-sama, she said. I smiled sadly as I nodded. I'm sorry for your loss, I said to her, but when deciding to join ANBU, if you had seen this poster, would you have accepted the job? I asked, sliding the paper from Danzo to her. The kunoichi looked at the paper for a minute before nodding resolutely. Yes, Hokage-sama, she said. I would have loved to join and I would still like to. See? I said to the stone-faced Danzo. Thank you, you may go back, I said to the ANBU and she disappeared from her place. It's time for you to start believing in the will of fire once again, Danzo, I said. I absolutely hated that term, but I was against believing in it, not using it against others. I had to do whatever it took to make this plan successful. Danzo stayed silent as he contemplated my words for a while. It was after nearly 10 minutes that he finally looked up and spoke. I shall implement the changes in my own way. I shrugged my shoulders as I stood up with a smile. As long as it's done by the end of this week. Coordinate your efforts with the jonin that Shikaku-san will appoint, I ordered. I could finally go home for the night.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.